This is turn 6 in my playthrough of Holy War Afghanistan from S&T number 147. And so turn 6 represents the year 1979, and it is the summer season. So we start with the government player, and the political index is at 30. This is favoring the government by a large amount, and the government gets 4 political chits. I get 3 agitation propaganda markers, and I get the government purge chit. So to satisfy the purge, what I did is I removed the Pushtu faction from the Communist Coalition. I mean, I could have expended an agitation chit to negate the effect of this, but I really don't think I need the Pushtu faction in the coalition at this point, and I'd rather save those propaganda chits. So 2 infantry divisions and a tank division are then mobilized by the Afghan government, and so the 11th Infantry and the 15 Armored are put in Kabul, and then the 7th Infantry is stationed in Quanduz. I decided to change the Soviet policy to self-defense, so that's going to reduce the political hit on the Afghan government on that index by 2 points. So then the 3rd MVD is reorganized into the 3rd Spetsnaz unit. Then I had the 17th Infantry Division move into Kalat. So what I'm going to do is make an effort to shore up the area around Kabul. I'm going to use the Soviet Air Force against known cadres, and then I'm going to try some subversive attacks with propaganda, trying to gain the popularity of the government with the inhabitants. So the Afghan resistance cadre outside of Kata Ashero ends up eliminated by interdiction, and then another resistance cadre is eliminated just to the south of Kata Ashero, and then a third is destroyed by Soviet air power. So these attacks had basically a 50-50 chance of success, so I got very fortunate. Then the Afghani Air Force also ran a number of sorties against the town of Kalahayanau and declares terror. So terror has the effect of removing popular support from the hex entirely. The air attacks ended up having no effect, though. Then I went into a major subversion campaign around the area of Kabul. And so an Afghani Communist Party front attacked the city of Jalalabad and used 2 agitation propaganda chits, and the subversion is successful. And so the Afghan Resistance Mobile Group, which had occupied the city, defects to the government. The Soviet cadre also successfully subverts the town of Kalahayanau, and now the Afghani resistance guerrilla units there are neutralized. The Afghan government okays the next plan to launch some military operations, although they will be limited. They're going to focus on the town areas of Chag Harim and Kalahayanau in the Kush region. So the Soviet cadre launches an attack using the guerrilla table and is supported by close combat support from helicopters. But the operation doesn't go very well, and the Soviets end up using mobile warfare to pull back into the safety of the Soviet Union. Also, a KGB secret police brigade attempted to launch a series of attacks on this same town, and this time the forces used conventional combat, and they are also supported by attack helicopters. And the resistance guerrilla unit there is eliminated this time by attrition, and Kalahayanau falls to the Soviets, and they occupy it. Then the 1st Commando Division, which is an Afghan government unit, performed an operation against the rebel-held town of Chaghor Harim, and it's defended there by a reliable guerrilla group. So the rebels end up choosing the guerrilla results table, and the resistance unit gets a no effect, but decides not to pull back. In this case, the resistance unit has a movement of 6, and the attacker, which is a commando unit, has a 12. So by remaining in the city, there's a chance to occupy the town. So the Afghan commando attacks and fails to damage the rebel unit, but remains in its base just outside of the town. So that wraps up the government player, and we go to the Afghan resistance player's turn. And so the political index now is down to 24. So the population is clearly preferring the communist government at this point. So the resistance gets only one political chit now. So the chit is the Mayhaz faction, which is a moderate faction in the south part of Afghanistan. And fortunately, I do have 2 cadres in the southern region, so 2 reliable guerrilla groups are mobilized, one in Farah and the other in Lascar Gah. And then 3 more guerrilla groups were able to be mobilized just to the northeast of Jalalabad. So the resistance carefully planned a number of operations that are going to focus on the Afghani government-held city of Kandahar, also the area of Gardez, and then another area near Jalalabad. And subversion is going to be used along with guerrilla tactics, because that's really the best way to function with the resistance. So the Islam cadre from Pakistan uses subversion against the 5th Secret Police Task Force in Gardez, but this ends up having no effect. The Chinese cadre also performs an attack on units in Jalalabad, and although the government occupation force is unaffected, the population turns to the resistance in support. So that's a good result. Then an effort's made to dislodge the government units in Kandahar. So the rebel and intervention forces get the intel benefit and opt to use the guerrilla combat results table, but the operation breaks down and the attackers use mobile warfare maneuvers and are able to get out of harm's way. But the government forces don't really want to leave the city, so they decide not to pursue in this case. At Gardez, the CIA and the Islam cadres join forces and attack the Communist Party unit in that town. And they use the guerrilla combat results table, but they get no result. So they use mobile warfare to pull back across the border into Pakistan. A series of operations also are unraveled against Jalalabad, and a guerrilla group launches attacks using the guerrilla combat results table, and this fails to damage the communist unit because they have a lot of cover in the city. Another guerrilla unit attacks the city using the mobile combat results table, and this time the Communist Party unit is destroyed by attrition, and the city of Jalalabad falls to the rebels. No further attacks are made. I don't really have a lot of options with the resistance. During the Jirga Loya stage, the communist government drops the political index to 14, and then the resistance brings it back up to 19, but I would say this is almost over. So the resistance leaders request going to the Jirga Loya, and the government obliges, and the rebels think that it's their only hope to get out of this political index deficit. So the resistance doesn't have any propaganda chits to use in this negotiation, but the government does have a propaganda marker up its sleeve and it expends it. And the result is mutual government achieved, except that the Communist Party doesn't agree with this. So the season ends and the political index is at 19 and the people are heavily leaning communist. Because of this decision, the game would normally continue on because the communist player doesn't want to accept a draw. So they would have had to get a better result on that table, and they're not accepting this. So what ends up happening is I would normally be playing this game onward, but I stopped the game here because the index is consistently dropping, and it's just a matter of time for the resistance player to run out of options. So that's kind of where I ended the game mutually, but I'm really going to call this a government victory here. So anyway, there's a lot going on in this game. I enjoyed it when I played it, and thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.